So let us now move on to the second keynote presentation. And it is my pleasure to invite Dr. Shankar, who also heads the governance at a SEBI registered ESG rating provider, for the second keynote presentation. Thank you once again, Dr. Shankar, for accepting our invite today. And I now hand over the presentation to you.
Thank you, Sneha. It's a pleasure. And it's always good to follow you guys, following Mahesh. Although I think we met last on a different avatar, although he says he was 15 years at Bayer. Uh, the breakfast reference, interesting. We met Sneha at Hyderabad, we had biryani together, but they say culture eats strategy for breakfast, right? And Mahesh also referred to the PSCI, the Pharmaceutical Supply Chain Initiative, which was perhaps something that Pfizer initiated. Talking of culture, what drives culture? And you spoke about Mahesh himself and the mergers and acquisition that happened in healthcare. There's a place in Aurangabad, friends, where there's a company called Ajanta Pharma long years ago. And this was taken over by Orchid Pharma, which went on to become Orchid Chemicals and Pharmaceuticals. Again, went on to a US acquisition by a Chicago-based company called Hospira, and then went on to become a Pfizer company. An example of a story that happened here, and typically we speak about breakfast, it's lunchtime, now let's say brunch. When people get together at the cafeteria to have food together, they don't like to sit together, right? Birds flock together. And that's where people, try and congregate. There's more people than the number of chairs at a table, but they pull the chairs together and do that well. This is a company where in Aurangabad, there was a guy, his name was Raju. He was a legacy guy here, and we had a long conversation with him, more in Hindi, until I realized he is West Godavari, he doesn't understand Hindi at all. But when he saw people doing this, breaking the pattern, he used to come in and kind of express his point of view, which he did very strongly. And I guess that's what changed the culture there. We set up injectables plant a long time ago, and when we did that, there are people who have never been part of the hierarchy, new guys coming in. And when some guy pulls in a chair and tries to join a set of his friends, everyone tells him, stay away, don't break the pattern here. Now, this guy is far long and gone. He is gone and the legacy is gone. But how does this persist? And that, friends, is something about culture. The people who initiated this are long forgotten, but the culture permeates. And that's what changes, that's what sticks. And this, friends, is the beginning of what you'd say is a power lunch here. So, friends, this is a deep-rooted cultural connection is the foundation of operational discipline. I think a lot of the Bureau Veritas team spoke about operational discipline. Let's hear a little bit about, let's look at the surveys. We have three polls there. A pretty good employee participation we see, balanced as we say here and there. Either it's you know it's 50% here and 50% both ways. But let's see what a survey of the barometer of topics that dominate board discussions globally. And this is what they say here. An over preoccupation with cost optimization has a negative impact of business resilience. And that's what is the theme today, building a resilient safety culture for a sustainable future. Lean teams kind of choke off operational risk response options here. A fixation on cost reduction has left organizations exposed to unforeseen risks. And this is what is a survey that's recent. They say there's two times in life. One is before Christ or before the COVID, but something after that here. Neha spoke about how, from moving from the why to the what, the how is what gives in sustainable change. Mahesh also connected with the SDGs and sustainable impact generation in what he spoke about here. Cost is king, right? I think the ultimate bottom line is profits. And a lot of the sustainable connect is critical to understand here. The last poll also was looking at the linkages of safety with sustainability. So let's look at this from the triple bottom line. So friends, you all know the financial bottom line that looks at the return on investment, capital cost, the valuation of the enterprise. And this normally is profits is the dirty word, nicely called prosperity, measured by the quarter of the economic performance. This, they say, is what is the viability of the organization. The social part of it looks at the community, the impact, health and safety also. So about the people measured by the social equity and reported on the social performance a lot of companies do, which tells you how equitable we are. On the operational front, however, there's energy, water, waste, operational excellence, life cycle, process impacts. This is the environmental stewardship largely reported by the environmental performance here. And these are the ones that is the bearable aspects of the triple bottom line here, friends. So, friends, all of us understand ESG, as they have mentioned. I do a lot of governance for the ESG rating companies. Very few people understand the connect with sustainability with business here. So what is the connector, friends? The connector is this one. That's a sustainable bottom line. That is the connector of ESG here. And this is what when people report on the ESG performance is called the ESG triple bottom line. And this is why they say that together these factors determine the quality of governance and risk management processes in any company here. The triple bottom line is an addition of the social and environmental to the traditional economic as we speak here. And that, my friends, is a triple bottom line. The question here is, how does this work? This actually is more of a tool for decision making. When we do things here, make a new project, set up a new plant, or set up a new line here, the question we need to ask ourselves is the decision viable from the economic point of view? Is it equitable from the people point of view? And is it bearable from the planet point of view here? But the focus here, and we ask every CEO and board owner, is what is so critical for them? It's always the people aspect. And that's why safety comes in first. I was at an Earth Day ceremony yesterday, and somebody spoke about the George Carlin definition that the planet will be here to stay. It has been through ice ages and it's been through a lot of catastrophic changes there. The people who are at risk, so we are at risk here. And the question here is for all of us to ask is, you've got to wear the hat of the CFO and look at the question of profits, the hat of the CHRO to look at the people, and also the hat of the COO to look at the planet. But ultimately, all of us are going to think like a CEO and try and ensure that we look at it from the sustainable dimensions there. So this is the connector of all the triple bottom lines, and obviously the people come first here. So that is the context there. I will try and give some case studies and some insights. We learned about the what and the why, but let's understand the how, some examples of how things went differently and how transformation could happen here. So this is a case of driving safety home. It's about driving safety. We had a workshop in the Cricket Club of India, the Brabourne Stadium. We got all the transporter heads together and asked them what's top of the mind concerns. And they said, evening there is a call, late night there's a sudden call, the truck's overturned, the entire material is gone, polluted the environment there, there's a contamination, there's a driver is kind of died, got crushed in a rollover. And then he said, what can we do about it? The transporters thought together and said, yeah, maybe we can ban night driving. Something very difficult to do in the transportation logistics sector. And this is, and you like the company I'm talking about, British Petroleum BP. And we said, is it possible? And they said, how do you monitor it? And then said, let's put vehicle data recorders. This, friends, is more than 20 years ago. We also engage with trucks, with Tata's Motors to get the vehicles upgraded from stage one to stage two with seat belts for drivers and the co-drivers there. And that's how the journey began to transform the Indian roads here. Friends, driving safely, arriving in shape is critical here. But the key message here is we need to collaborate and grow. We speak about stakeholder engagement. I think the ISO speaks about the interested parties here. The connect is getting total stakeholder buy-in, and might also refer to how we can get people to own the agenda there. A strategy and vision is as good as it stands here, but getting people to own it is when they actually are a part of the strategic creation exercise here. So that's one story and one definition of how you could get total stakeholder engagement to drive culture here. How do we measure cultural maturity? In the poll we had, there was, I think, 40% said proactive, 60% said inconsistent, and not quite there at all, which is an interesting survey there as surveys go. But safety culture also has this journey, this transition here. And they say that you need to also have a baseline. You can't really know where you're going until you know where you've been. And I guess cultural maturity is also a lot about change management. And how do you do that is the story that I'd like to talk about here. Our cultural maturity also is like wherever you are, it's a snapshot in time, right? When some shit breaks loose, something happens. The best of companies, even companies, 200-year-old companies have had incidents, have had fatalities, regardless of how good they are. So snapshot across time may vary there. It's going beyond compliance, going beyond the risk perception, improving the risk perception, as Disha said, and also the consistency in managing risks is what this talks about here. Typically, a model that works, and we heard about the plan, do, check, act in quality improvement. Something similar to this is what we call the business excellence that calls the approach, that's the purpose, vision, mission, and values. How do we deploy it down the line? How do we get people engaged? How then do we assess? How do we learn from it? And then how we deploy it consistently? How do we learn from that? the reassessment, refinement, and integration. This is what is the business assessment model there. This is the Tata business model that we're speaking about here. So change management largely is about the cultural transformation, and these are the various dimensions or sub-dimensions is your of safety excellence here. Friends, another story here, a brush with productivity. I guess this is a shop floor in a paint company, as you can see here. There's my couple of interesting insights there. A dirty shop. I was the production manager at a paint shop there. Had a unionized plant there, difficult to get people to do things here because they always had excuses. There was material not available, pallets not pallet trucks broken, and there was pipes that was not missing, packaging material unavailable, pallets not working, bar cuts and stuff. So we had a lot of challenge in managing the norms. And what we did finally in those days, we put up a whiteboard at the end of the shift and we had a smiley for the people who manage the norms in spite of all the constraints. We also had a grumpy for guys who kind of struggled, didn't quite meet the criteria expected, but kind of tried their best. And the sad face or the angry face of the people who didn't kind of do the bit here. And I said, a unionized plant there. So what are the learning out here? Sometimes in life, it's also the traffic lights that matter. None of us want to be in the red, right? We all want to be somewhere in the green or at least the amber. So creating a differentiation, even on the shop floor, making it visual is what helps safety, quality, and of course, productivity. And that's about one of the challenges that one can, one of the things that can take the challenges. Some of us in the corporate roles struggle to get reports from people across the continent. How do you do that? Create a dashboard, make it colorful, and voila, you get what you need here. We spoke about a sustainable safety culture enabled by a good mix of design, processes, and employees' behavior. This is key to it. Governance, I speak about governance standards and practices here. It's like the Domino's of Swiss cheese, which the mice will love. But again, safe behaviors is what gets us to sustainable living. Positive thinking and risk management, risk-based thinking. Every decision needs to be risk-based, the other thought here. So to make decision making easy, we also speak about the head, the heart, and the gut. So a lot of us think about this from various dimensions. Some of us are, we are following a checklist, are sticklers for processes. Some of us go by the heart, and some of us take gut decisions there. So balancing the head, heart, and guts, friends, and again, it's a company that taught us this, is to make the right choices, aligning with, Mahesh spoke about the VAC, the mission, vision, values, and beliefs. So if you're able to do this and align all the time, it's like a compass that you're wearing, which kind of ensures, even if you don't have AI and the footage of CCTV, this is where you can align with the values of the company. The closer the alignment, the better will be the culture, the better will be the maturity of this here. We spoke about sustainability of efforts. How do you sustain? One of the biggest challenges was doing TQM, and TQM in a quality role was what we did here. TQM is what they call "Tumhe kya mila." End of the day, it's what the customer gets or the employee gets at the end of it. One of the interesting things we did in this location here was every day of the week we had something planned. So we had people who had a presentation to make on a 5S or a Kaizen to present or a small group activity. If it was Monday, it was block A. If it was Tuesday, it was supply and distribution. Wednesday, it was the maintenance department. It was Thursday, it was HR. So each of these days, people should come forward and own this year. Very interestingly, and sometimes this is akin to the Microsoft calendar where there is a beautiful webinar happening at 11 o'clock. There's a reminder in 15 minutes, a reminder in 5 minutes, and it gets you to ensure to jump into the webinar. It's like an Outlook calendar, friends. One of the companies that I was working in almost 40 years ago was assessed recently, and they said that this cycle is still adopted here. So how well you embed anything that you do and make this part of your life embedded in the DNA is another big exercise that can work well. This also is a way of standardizing and ensuring that you are making this a part of the culture and sustains. It's not people dependent, but the process lives on here. And I guess that's the other interesting story here. So friends, we speak about transformation, various methodologies, and this is one thing that we did at one of the big majors out here, demonstrating visible leadership. As Mahesh mentioned, it's all about walk the talk, monkey see, monkey do. So it's how people do and feel genuine care. It's difficult to fake, friends. Nisha spoke about the understanding real root causes, not just the reason you do the 5I, what was the methodology, you do get to understand the real system causes until you get to the real management system element there, develop action plans there. Uh, we also spoke about psychological safety. And I guess this is one way that really helps. And how does this work here? We tried this in a Rio Tinto mine, a roasting uranium mine recently. And so about leadership, there's a survey that friends says, what is it that helps build trust? What's the most important parameter? So friends, in the health and safety industry, safety leadership is not much about expertise on safety, but more about openness, transparency, honesty, and care for team members. So you can see this is what is so critical. A lot of people say that they're not safety leaders because they don't know anything about safety. It's not about safety competency, not about subject expertise. It's about care. Openness and care is something that is so commonly and so easy to do. So that is what one of the surveys says, very relevant for all of us and for the session here today. Concern and care wins over consistency and competence. Psychological safety largely is about how people can encourage, as somebody spoke about, speak up, share a speak up concern. A lot of leaders, even when they stand behind doors, nobody calls them out because they're worried. How can we speak up? And India has a lot of hierarchical kind of nature there. So people are the problem sometimes at the heart of what the issues are. A lot of focus is on behavior, punishment, all that is something that people do. And there's a fear, and this cycle is pretty vicious there. How does this help? Replace this, the problem with the solution. And that's how people can speak up here. Creating a culture of care is what inspires leadership and trust, and focus on psychological safety definitely will help. There is a nice mirror in most offices, most plants that says, who drives safety here? And it says, you are the person who drives safety out here, which is nice to say that. They say that you're responsible for your own safety, which is true. They say safety is everyone's responsibility is the clarion call there, and everyone kind of heeds by that. But I guess you know the story here. The story of four people named everybody, somebody, anybody, and nobody. So the important thing to be done, everybody asked to do it. Everybody saw that somebody would do it. Anybody could have, but nobody did it. Somebody got angry, blank, blank, blank. It ended up everybody blamed somebody when nobody did what anybody could have done. It's a nice story here, but how does this relate to what we? And let's talk of a story here. We had a big project in the Middle East where we drove a renewable company, largest solar company in the world. We drove a project for Saudi Arabia and a big bid. We set up offices in the Dubai, the UAE, bidding for multiple trips. I mean, visa was most passport stamped multiple times. At the last stage, the CEO of this company here came in and asked one simple question. And he said, who drives safety in this company? There were two Pandays out here in this audience there. One was a guy called Shankar Pandey. He was a project manager. And the other guy was the HSE man, a guy called Shankar Pandey. Guess what everyone did? Whom did everyone look at here? Yes, it was the wrong Pandey. It was Ajay Shankar Pandey. What happened to this project? Multi-billion-dollar investment. We all had to pack our bags and come back to the Middle East. So what is it that changed? What is the expectation there? And what some people say that everybody should have should have been everybody. But ultimately, friends, it's about the single point accountability. The expectation was the project manager owns driving safety for the project here, and that was the expectation of the company called Aqua Power here. So creating ownership through role clarity is most critical. The terms accountability, the responsibilities are used fairly interchangeably. Very important to understand the differentiation. So defining role clarity, friends, accountability is something different. Accountability vests with the person who's what executive authority, who's ultimately accountable for the task. This is why they call it a single point accountability. A person who signs off, the de facto, the person who's the owner, he's the guy who approves, he's the guy who gives the budget and ensures that the responsibility is assigned to the right people. The people who are responsible need to do the job. They are tasked with it. They do have some kind of ownership there. But if in case something goes wrong, it's always the CEO who drives and also writes signs on the policy. The factory manager, the occupier, they are the people whose head is on the block there, right? And the consultants are maybe the functions like the quality safety support function, the subject matter experts, the people who need to give the processes. They are the people who are the advisors, the internal advisors of the company. And the people need to be informed are the people who should not jump into the discussion there. So getting role clarity here is important there. In various places there, like in Dr. Reddy's, what we did was create a zone owner, have every area, every floor of an office, every block in a plant divided, and get people gamification like in a couple of ways. We also got people to own their areas. It's like an IPL style bidding where we had owners, sponsors, and so much like that. We got a lot of things, including sustainability and safety driven quality, 6 days of safety. And that's how this works there. So creating ownership through gamification is one way of deploying and demonstrating accountabilities and ensuring the responsibilities are passed on here. So the single point of accountability is the zone owner. He ensures that he gets things done. He might not know everything. He might not do everything. He might need to get something done by the admin guy, or by the housekeeping guy, by the electrical guy. But he's the guy who is the one point of contact, be it a conference room or a block. This is one way of holding area ownership through zoning. Makes it interesting in some ways. This was launched around the Women's Premier League, the WPL. This was done in a place called Vada in Blue Star. We called it the Vada Premier League, and this was a big hit there, friends. So Mera Zone Mahan is what they say here. Ultimately, all of life is about managing risks here, the human factors, looking at risk and opportunity-based thinking. Very important because it's all about subjective beliefs, biases, risk perceptions. The large main cause of incidents, friends, is inadequate risk perception. And that's something that we can manage, be it in behavioral based, in slip, trips, and falls, or even in process safety. In a refinery that I worked in, it's one of the biggest refining hubs in the west coast of India, in Jamnagar, we tried a different technique. I don't know if you heard of the Edward de Bono's six thinking hats. Greg Chappell tried this for the Indian cricket team. He tried to make Saurav Ganguly the non-playing captain, Sachin Tendulkar to open and stuff like that. Rahul Dravid to do wicket keeping apart from what he did here. Not very popular. He didn't survive. But this technique basically has six hats where each of us, and let's take one hat as example. The black hat is a person who thinks of how things could go wrong. He thinks maybe from the point of view of caution. And that's the imperative question in any safety decision. What can go wrong? Typically, everyone is a yes man here. Anything comes up, everyone is gung ho. Everyone supports the leader there. This was launched exactly 20 years ago on Fire Services Day, where we had various functions actually wearing various hats. Let me explain one. There's one guy wearing the black hat. He was an engineering head. He was a guy, his name was Narada Singh. He had a problem in everything here. Anything that happens, he would say, this won't work. The refinery will burn down. There'll be a total failure. It will collapse. There'll be a fire. This is absolutely crazy. And we thought he's a pretty negative, pessimistic guy. But friends, what was he doing? Through it all, he was asking the right questions and telling people what could go wrong here. We made him the head of mechanical integrity, asset reliability, and asked him to wear the black hat. It's something you do in a meeting where if you speak negatively, people will take it personally. If you wear a black hat and say, I'm wearing the black hat and say that this is what could go wrong. This is the hazards in this particular thing. There's a risk in this turnaround. This is where we need to engage a different contractor. This is how things could be perceived differently. It's all about perception, friends. So using a six thinking hat and ownership of not only areas, but you got each function to own each element of the 12 or 13 process safety elements. So operations did the safe operating procedures. They also did their own checks and balances when the plant got commissioned. The refinery got into compliance, did the compliance. L&D was heading training and communication. HR, of course, did the employee participation safety culture. PSI was done by technical services, process hazard by process, and of course, management of change by quality. Projects, of course, was responsible for the largest pre-startup managing 12,000 contractors at Jamnagar there. And CSM was done by the projects team herself. So this is one way of getting functional accountability and also using different techniques. Think out of the box is one of the things we could do because it's a dull, drab, dreary thing a safety guy does. And one way when you talk of implementing safety, cultural transformation, kind of not very exciting, right? Not very romantic. We spoke about gamification through the WPL and IPL. This is where I think we'll call it something different, like operation risk management. This kind of catches the eyeballs of the CEO, and that's what works well here. Managing risks, like you said, has a lot of various facets to it. Typically, there's a control measure that we normally need to have. This is called the bow tie. They call it the cause, effect, consequence. And how does this work? We call it the barrier health management between an iron and steel plant. This is the top event that is the consequence. There is always proactive controls and there is mitigating controls there. The mitigating control, the reactive controls are the ones that kick in after the event. After a fire, there would be suppression and stuff there, process shutdowns and fire protections. But what we need to importantly look at are the proactive controls, and that's the second poll that we did. How proactive can we be? Looking at the fault tree, looking at preventive barriers for each activity, each area. Getting this done was what we called barrier health management. One way of doing the appropriate risk management, something that worked well in the steel plant here. So the cause, effect, consequence in terms of even root cause analysis, as Nisha said, if you break it down into cause, effect, consequences, you'll be able to address the elements of all of these well here. We also spoke about the pause. We need to take a pause before actions there. What is the pause, friends? The pause is not the Pakistani leg spinner, but also the plan and use safety every day. How do you do this? How do you take a pause before actions here? A take five is what we suggest out here. So whether you get up of bed in the morning, sit straight up and jump in and slip or kind of have vertigo and fall down, happen to a lot of people there. Or we cross the road, we tell the children, look left, look right, and people could come both ways here. Or like the great poet who was cutting his tree and then became a great poet, Kalidas. The questions we need to ask is, the first thing is about thinking through the task. What are the activities I'm about to perform? The second one is about identifying the hazards. What could go wrong? And this has to come from a 360-degree dimension. And as Raj Kapoor said, aage bhi nahi, piche bhi, upar bhi nahi, niche bhi. And each of the directions there is what we need to look at here. Assessing the consequences, the risks involved in that particular activity, and taking control, making changes before doing the action. We spoke about the 2 minutes, the VV way, but again, this also is important. Keeping it simple, a lot of risks. We have a lot of heras, hera hai sada ke liye, but heras don't change sometimes. The awareness, situational awareness of what are the activities about to do, the alertness to what could go wrong, assessing, anticipating what could go wrong. Again, that's very important on the roads or even in the factory or the shop floor here. Avoidance to prevent risk prevention, mitigation, as we said, as Neha said, and finally doing the task safely here. This is what keeps us safe, friends. And I guess this is a lot of what we wanted to say. Appreciate your time. I hope we've kind of made it here. Across my years, a lot of people across my avatars, I learned a lot from various leaders. And this is thanks to a lot of what we said here. But pleasure connecting. And I guess as we say here, at the end of all we said and done, far more is said, little done. Stay safe. Safety always for everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Shankar. That was an enlightening session. And thank you for sharing your experience through the multiple case studies on how the journey towards safety excellence for an organization should look like, and the various aspects of safety as a culture for an organization, how it is achieved through behavioral changes, through employee engagement, who are also the future leaders of the organization, and how accountability is equally important in this journey. Thank you very much. We will continue this discussion in a panel discussion that we have now. So I request Mr. Rupam to engage with our speakers, Dr. Nisha, Mr. Mahesh, and Dr. Shankar, in a panel discussion going forward.
Yeah.
Over to you,
Uh,
sir.
yeah, thanks, Neha. I think Dr. Sankar's deliberation, the very last one, maybe I might start with him. Probably the de Bono principle, what you talked about, the head, no color heads and all, and everybody, anybody, nobody. That this is really fantastic. In fact, what you have been saying, and finally the pause, what you talked about, like we have similar 2 minutes of safety. Maybe I'll start with you. You have been operating in various parts of the world. I think right from equality, safety, health, environment, all those things. Now, when you transform something on a safety transformation, this probably is a kind of project based for once. Now, how really challenging to sustain that or maintain that? Because after attaining some amount of pinnacle of performance or achievement, to sustain that, what are the challenges you have faced?
Wonderful question. Uh, as I messaged the BB team when they began, I said, well begun is half done. Most of the work we do starts well, but remains that way here. One of my BBS, behavioral based safety gurus, hit the gym the other day, and he sent a picture of himself with the gym doing a leg press. And a lot of people came up and said, my God, watch out, put the clip on, you'll get something will happen to you. Scared him so much. I'm not sure he went to the gym today. But I guess it's always the second day that matters. The most difficult day when you put in a big workout there. So be it health or safety, it's about sustenance. So, like I said, building in, putting this framework, embedding it, keeping it simple, the simple things that you do, ensuring that you form the tiny habits. These tiny habits are the building blocks of cultural transformation. Good behavior. As we speak, in the last gig where I was, my job was to coach a leader. This is a gentleman named Naveen Jindal. I don't know much of coaching, but the other way around. And he spoke about the body and respecting the body. And there was a performance management system where it started at 6:30 in the morning, where you got to put in an hour of yoga every day and 1 hour in the gym. So 6:30 to 8:30 was about yourself, physical fitness. Again, sharpen the saws on physical fitness. And this was reviewed across weekly. It's like called the 411. This was reviewed across here. So the leader would ask this person, whatever your commitment was, did you do it? Did you do your exercise? Did you do a physical part of it? So putting in the small elements, making these tiny habits work is what helps really sustaining anything. Because a cultural transmission is like a flavor of the day, and even quality and safety. There is things like lean, Six Sigma. There is there is TQM. All these kind of come in, and people get slightly pessimistic there. So anything that has to be done, there has to be some involvement, some gamification, some energy. It has to be done in a jazzy manner, like you said. The gamification is what helps, and putting in these small things here. If one is to do a Gemba walk, would I do it on the Monday of the week, or would I do it on Friday evening? So again, that's where coming to what I said, doing it the right way, doing it from the heart. That's what helps sustain culture.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Shankar. Maybe I'd like to